Are now live, I believe. Let me turn my lights on, actually. There we go. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. This is our weekly show on the Carbon Hack, which is coming up in starting on March the 18th. Welcome all. My name is Asim Hussain. I'm the Executive Director of the Green Software Foundation. With me today is Joseph. Joseph, why don't you give an intro to yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Joseph. I'm a dev and a project manager on the Impact Framework.
Awesome. Welcome. Yeah, this is our session, which is where we just, we just go through every week, talk about the Carbon Hack. Today, we're going to just give a quick intro, as we always do, like hopefully like just 5 minutes for everybody who's new to Carbon Hack. We're just going to give a quick intro to there. And then Joseph and I were chatting, and I think one of the things we're going to do today, because this is one of our deep dive sessions, we're just going to dive into some conversations around impact framework and measurement. So probably today, as you said, we probably go through some of the projects that have already been proposed, and especially the ones that are recruiting, and we're probably going to have just a bit of a chat there. Might use this as a working session where there's some that I haven't given feedback for yet, so it'll be maybe a working session where we can figure out what feedback to give and support. And what else was it, Joseph? If you've got time, I can't remember what else. You just reminded me 3 times now, and I've forgotten it already. But what was the other things we said we were going to do?
Yeah, we're going to give the introduction, the slides, then we're going to have a look at the ideas board. We're going to chat a little bit, if we have time, about the re-architecting that we're doing.
Yeah, the re-architecting.
And then if there's still time after that, we were thinking of diving into one of our live docs and using it as a bit of a working session.
Yeah, working session, because time is limited. So as much time we can use working and kind of doing things at the same time. And also, this is the session. If you're listening in, if you've got any questions, if you're in the webinar, it'll come through. I believe if you're on LinkedIn and you type on the comment, it will come through. I'm not 100% sure about. I'm pretty sure if you type a comment on Twitter X, it won't come through. I'm reasonably sure if you're on YouTube, it'll come through. Hey, if you're on YouTube when you're listening, could you just type a comment in right now so we can know if it comes through? Or if you're on LinkedIn and you're listening, type a comment. Or if you're on the webinar and you're listening, type a comment. That'll make us feel a lot less lonely as well. But also, if you've got any questions, just fire them away. And that's what we're here. This is mostly a Q&A session to help you understand kind of how to engage with the hackathon. The hackathon starts on the 18th of March and finishes on the 8th of April. Thank you very much to our sponsors, and our sponsors list is growing. And if you're interested in being a sponsor for the hackathon, please email carbonhack@greensoftware.foundation. This year, Carbon Hack is a yearly thing that we run. This year, it's about measurement, how to measure software, and the tool that we've measuring software using a tool that we built called Impact Frame, which is the tool that Joseph is the PM for. The hack experience, you can hack by yourself, you can hack in teams. Like our goal always is to make sure that you build the best product possible. Like we win when you build the best product possible. You're all winners as far as, for us, every single one of you is a winner if you're contributing to the impact framework and contributing to the work that we're all trying to do here. We have a bunch of different prizes. We have a prize. Let me start off with bottom right, best contribution to the framework, which is adding a feature or enhancing an existing one to the impact framework itself. So this is one of our repositories, one of our actual core repositories. Joseph and I were talking today, and one of the things we're going to be doing is we're going to be making available to you slightly more process around what does that mean. So we're getting some issues together, which is kind of these are the areas that we think we could really appreciate some contribution and a little bit of a process, because we want to make sure that if you were to like contribute to the framework, that we're not just going to reject your PR because it doesn't meet our design goals and our roadmap and things like that. So we really want to help that if you want to pick one of those issues, we're going to have a conversation with you to make sure that this is kind of aligned. If you want to propose one, you can propose one, and we will then kind of align you to something that works. Because unfortunately, if we can't just accept any PR to the framework, because if you could be breaking like a dozen other things if you accept that PR. So we just want to make sure everything's very, very aligned. And there are some very like core features that the world would deeply benefit if it was added to the framework. So we're going to be making that more clear to you. Best content, best piece of content published about the impact framework: an article, a tutorial, a video, a how-to guide. content around specific areas. Like, I think there's lots of questions around how do you use Impact Framework for AI? How do you use Impact Framework to measure Kubernetes? How do you use Impact Framework to measure a mobile application? There's areas like this that would really help, like just very basic how-tos to help people understand how to get the best of it. Impact Framework is quite simple. It's just a series of standards for how to write a manifest file. The power of Impact Framework is in this ecosystem of plugins, and this is the largest part of the hackathon for us, is people building plugins. And we'll talk about some of those when we go through the idea section. But a plugin is just like a little piece of code which can effectively compute, helps compute the impact of a piece of software. Beyond Carbon is a plugin, a specific type of plugin, which specifically helps you demonstrate the application, like helps you measure beyond carbon. So waste, water, air quality, things like that. We really want to start moving the conversation at the foundation beyond carbon. So this is a prize specifically for that. For instance, if you were to create a plugin that helps convert energy to water stress, something like that might be an interesting one. There's lots of academic papers around that, topics like this. Beyond Carbon, we expect to be, a lot of what we expect to come from Beyond Carbon are kind of like translations of academic work and things like that, would probably be the best implementation of Beyond Carbon. And very excitingly, we have an under 18s prize and a best undergraduate prize. So if your entire team is under 18, there'll be a special prize for you. If your entire team is an undergraduates from university, then we have a special prize for you. Encourage people, spread the word about these two things. Let people know this is and again, we're all guiding, we're all supporting. Sponsoring, again, like if it's $5,000 to sponsor, we kept the intentionally low this year because we really want to encourage a lot of people to engage and have a voice here. You get one seat on the jury, you get the logo, your feature, feature during the main award ceremony. But also, like, we want to speak to you. Like, if you're sponsoring, we're guessing you're sponsoring because you've got a measurement challenge, and we want to speak to you. We'll be bringing you on these calls and kind of having you, hopefully having you like express like what your challenge is and what you're hoping people will build as a result of the hackathon. These are the important dates, as we said. 18th of March, hackathon begins. April the 8th, hackathon ends. The awards ceremony is April the 18th. Last year we ran and we had 51 projects at the end. It was very, very exciting. We had 400 hackers. This is what happened last year. It was around carbonware computing, and we kickstarted a lot. I think we actually kickstarted 2 startups, Joseph, last year, which was pretty exciting. I'd love if we kickstarted some startups with this year as well. Measurement is a very important and still challenging aspect of sustainability. And again, as I said before, if you want to sponsor, you can go to carbonhack@greensoftware.foundation. Just email us. We'll send you the information. The information we'll send you is this link, which is the grunstuff.org/hack/sponsor form. And that's just a form to fill out that starts the whole sponsorship process and gets our legal team to send you a DocuSign and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there you go. That's the actual sponsorship process. We're looking and a bit more details at Hackathon. I should say, hang on, do we have another slide? Oh, no, we don't. So without that, I will actually remove that then. Again, any questions, fire away. I'll present my screen, Joseph. I'll present this one. Because I realized we should probably also very quickly talk about the Hack website. If you sign up, the main thing we ask people to do, if you think you're interested in hacking, is go to hack.greensoftware.foundation, click on Get Updates, and just sign up. That will send you an email with everything you need to know. The most important thing is it will send you details of the repository, which is our Hack repository. This is where you'll find every single piece of information about how to participate in the hackathon. I recommend going to the wiki and going to the participant guide. You can see my mouse there on the right-hand side, participant guide. And this gives you all the key information that you need. You want to lead a hackathon project or you want to join a hackathon project. Each of these things is the videos. It tells you what to fill out, the process, and the stages. Effectively, if you want to submit a project, it comes up as an issue. So we've got 8 projects proposed right now. We really are very excited. Every time we see a project, we get so excited. It comes through our Slack as an automation. We all get so excited. And as you can see, we weigh in with like comments and support when we can. Joseph, what should we do? Should we go through? Should we click on the ones with recruiting? I suppose that's the most important.
Yeah. Well, last week we went through some of these.
Okay.
So maybe starting from the top and going down, because then we'll cover off the new ones.
Yeah, we haven't actually. Oh, Charlie Cheese. Hi, Charlie. So we've been chatting on LinkedIn. So yeah, awesome. Ches control. I like that. Cheese control. Building that's what I need is some cheese control, because otherwise I eat too much cheese. So building a plugin for Impact Framework. So this is the type of project. A simple as possible plugin that gets startups an 80-20 view of the carbon impact of their software without writing any code. Interesting. That'll probably just be a billing. I would imagine my mind is going straight away to billing data from that perspective. I don't know. Take standard inputs via a GUI website. Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Okay, so it'll be some form of questionnaire. I've seen these kind of models before. This, like when you see other carbon accounting and things like that, and LCA and things like that, you basically have a questionnaire that you fill out, and then that goes into some sort of a methodology which generates an input file. That's kind of interesting in a generic sense, actually. Runs the if model. So that's not really a plugin, is it, actually, thinking about it? Graphical displays of information, benchmarking versus other startups, analysis, sensitivity. Oh, that's interesting. Suggests and prioritizes options to reduce emissions, suggest options for offsetting. Ooh, that could be a plugin if you wanted at the end. Key best way to interface with the user, decisions over standard settings. So let me give you. Would like to help finding teammates. Okay, let me give my first piece of feedback for this one, Charlie. I think there's definitely aspects of this that would make a really good plugin. Given what you described here, it wouldn't classify as a plugin. We would probably describe this as what would you describe this as, Joseph? As like an application.
It seems like it's or it's kind of like a wrapper over the IF.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of tooling on top. It's quite comprehensive.
It's cool.
It's big.
Yeah,
a lot of work here.
And the guidance, because with the guidance we've given a lot of people right now is this is why we didn't structure the hackathon to build stuff like this, because the impact framework is changing so much. Like right now we're rewriting a lot of the impact framework as we speak. The interface should remain the same, but the underlying is going. So we're saying to people, like, wait until it's a 1.0 before you start building like layers on applications that layer on top of it, because anything you build now, we want to have a little bit of freedom, or you have to accept that there's going to be a lot of freedom to kind of adjust as we go along. So from that perspective of kind of building, like, because there's been multiple times actually now that the people talk about building a GUI on top of it. And I would just say we're a little bit early for that right now, because even the impulse format might change and other things might change. And anyway, that's what we think. You can do what you want, but in terms of the hackathon, we've structured it so it doesn't work that way. The bits of this that like the end of it, suggest options for offsetting. That's kind of interesting, Joseph, isn't it? That is kind of interesting. You could have a plugin. Yeah, I mean,
what did you have in mind when because you said that jumps out as a potential plugin? What was in your head?
So you know how we have like a pipeline for, like, you could just have do we have any samples in here? Do I have to go to the code? I just need some impulse. So just go to the code.
Yeah, you can go to model plugins and go to the examples in the readmes. They've all got example impulse in.
What would be
any one of the Sci ones?
Sci,
yeah, any.
Yeah.
Scroll down.
Okay, scroll down. So, oh, unfortunately, it's just got one pipeline here. So let me actually just go to IF. Hang on.
Okay.
Let's go to IF. So I'm just going to go to the source code and try and build up a. Where do we have it? Examples.
You can go IF. Yeah, IF demo impulse test.
Test. Yeah. Okay.
IF demo's got a long pipeline in it.
Long pipeline. Here we go. Okay. Here we go. So this is a long pipeline. Here we go. So in this pipeline here, that gets data from Azure, that gives you some extra like bits of information. Then you get to Teed's curve, and by Teed's curve you've got energy, right? There could be a plugin here. I'm not actually going to like edit this, but I'm just to there could be a plugin. I mean, imagine forget about it. Ignore you doing psi. By this point, you could do offsets, energy offsets. Everybody hates it when I call them energy offsets, which is one of the reasons I really love calling them energy offsets. So energy offsets, which is like RECs, renewable energy credits, or renewable energy certificates, or I don't know, like whatever one of those kind of I've bought so many kilowatt hours of renewable energy. There are data services. I've never really looked into it properly, but I know there's various places you can go to get energy offset data. So you theoretically, by this point, you will know how much energy your software is using. So if you could throw in energy offsets at the end, it might then be able to then go, well, given this amount of energy, and it would also know the time that you consume that energy as well. I don't know if that affects a certain type of RECs that are kind of time-based as well. So you could then go away and figure out, you can buy these offsets to offset you down to zero. There's certain settings I mean, if you wanted to have settings around that, the settings you might have are offsets might be like, do you want to be like 100%? Are you aiming for 100%? If you're aiming for 100%, then you want to offset all your energy. Not every company is aiming for 100%. Like, this is interesting. This is where things get methodology. 24. What do we call it? Hourly. Yeah. Hourly. So there's this whole thing, and we talk about it in our Learn. That's the Microsoft one. Where's ours? Learn dot green software that found it. Oh my god, that is just not even remotely there. Oh, I got it. Where have I put it? Have I put it under there? Yeah. So in terms of like, if you really want to get wonky, there are different types of being 100% renewable. You can be 100% renewable on a yearly basis or a monthly basis, or you can be 100% renewable on an hourly basis, which is usually called 24/7 hourly matching, which gets very interesting. So you could, and that's very hard to calculate, and it changes dramatically the cost of offsetting if you want to be 24/7 hourly. That would be wild. An hourly. I don't know what you'd call it. Hourly. 24/7 hourly. The problem is every single organization calls the same thing something different. So Google calls it 24/7 hourly matching. Microsoft calls it 110. I think it's like 100% renewable. 124. I can't really call it. So that you could or however you want to call it. You could have different methodologies. You could have hourly, or what do I call it? Hourly, which is 24/7 hourly matching. You could say I want to be 100% renewable on a yearly basis. Man, even just energy offsets is complicated enough as a single plugin. I think that'd be really valuable just by itself. But you could even have carbon offsets. You could have it's actually easier to build carbon offsets plugin because there's so many data services, there's API solutions already where you could just query it and saying, hey, look, I'm looking for this kind of carbon offset, and obviously there'd be parameters for that as well. But to get to carbon offsets, you'd have to actually like go through the rest of the, get to the point where the pipeline is returning you carbon, and then you can throw in carbon offsets at the end. So that's the offsets. I think is kind of interesting. I don't know. That's really complicated. I don't know what you're thinking, Joseph. That is what my feedback for I'll write this up as well. It's very interesting. It's very complicated what you've written here. Just this will be a fair amount of work and be extremely useful.
Yeah, that is interesting to hear you talk about it, because when I first looked at it, I thought, well, okay, if you want to work out how much you're offsetting, well, you're going to calculate an amount of energy that you want to offset, and you already have that because you just do TEEDS and SAE, and you've got how much, but now you've put it in those terms where it could actually return by this number of these credits, and then you're fine. That's kind of like, that's much more powerful. Yeah. Can definitely see the value in that.
Yeah, that actually is so useful.
Yeah, it's good.
Charlie, please do this. Please. I'll comment in if you're listening. Please do it. That, or if not Charlie, someone please do that. And we'll I think that's a really powerful feature actually. Whatever your feelings are on offsetting, which is kind of those mixed feelings across the board, right? I think bringing transparency to it is probably the thing that will. I always say that it's all about transparency, isn't it? If we could bring transparency to it, you bring trust. That's why people don't trust a lot of offsetting, is because of the lack of transparency. If we knew, like let me just talk for a little bit about energy offsetting and kind of why it's so problematic. Like the reason why, like when one organization says, I'm 100% renewable, and another organization says I'm 100% renewable, it actually means very little, because RECs can be bought on so many different terms. You can buy them for pennies on the dollar. You can buy them for, it can double your cost of electricity if you're buying really high quality RECs. But when you say you're 100% renewable, it doesn't give you an indication of the quality of the energy offsets that organization bought. It's just a sentence. 24/7 hourly matching is an attempt to kind of like somewhat, it's not even a standard, because it's like one organization and other organizations have agreed this is okay, but it's not like a standard. I don't think there's like an ISO standard for what it means, but it is a more stricter definition. If you say you're 100% renewable according to 24/7 hourly matching, it's kind of a stricter definition, but still there's a lot of room for variability. But if that is all fully transparent inside this process, at least then, because you'd have to write in your config, you'd have to say, I want to be target 100% renewable method yearly, and the max I'm willing to pay is like, $2 per kilowatt hour, right? Or something like that. You'd have to express some aspect of quality or something like that. I don't know, but it'd all be public. So that makes you feel good. Yeah.
Sounds like a wide open design space.
Yeah, I think so. Should we move to the next one?
Sure.
Should we move to the next one? So I think that's the feedback. I'll type this in for Charlie. I'll hopefully keep all my windows open. I'll type this as feedback for Charlie, but really looking forward to something in that space. Blockchains. So you've got a background in blockchains, don't you, Joseph? Or somewhat experience?
Yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
I know a bit about how it works. Mm-hmm. So I have given some feedback on this issue already. It's an ongoing conversation.
Oh, okay.
I haven't read this latest comment yet, actually, so I'm seeing it for the first time right now. But sorry, go ahead.
Should we start at the top? Maybe we're going to carry on.
Yeah. Start at the beginning. This is a proposal to create a plugin for calculating the software carbon intensity for blockchains. Now, obviously, that's a huge topic. Blockchains is there's a lot of different things that fall under that umbrella. Some very, very energy intensive, and others not so. So certainly, the first thing right off the bat is we're not going to develop a plugin for blockchains. It's going to be for some specific subset of blockchains. Otherwise, it's just too huge.
Yeah,
too huge. It's like saying we'll make a plugin for computers or something like that. It's just it's enormous. So I have to constrain it a little bit. There's some discussion back and forth, some ideas chucked around. The first one is around Bitcoin. Obviously, it's
you said Bitcoin,
a very energy intensive.
Yeah, and it's also still uses proof by stakes. It's the most energy intensive, right? Still.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But like
by far, by all of them, compared to all of them.
Vastly. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the actual numbers, but if this is the claim here is Bitcoin alone accounts for 0.38% of global electricity consumption.
Oh, right.
So
it's not like
huge.
Bitcoin is like the biggest, but not the majority shareholder. It is Bitcoin is like 90% of all of blockchain chains emissions
of the energy consumption
of all the different cryptos. And then I suppose so many of them are just based off of Ethereum anyway, or some sort of Ethereum type one. But anyway.
Well, so I mean, from a green software point of view, Ethereum was also a proof of work blockchain originally, and then they went through this process called the merge, where they switched off that energy intensive calculation and replaced it with an energy efficient version. They dropped the energy. The claim is they dropped the energy consumption by 99.99 something percent. So they basically just switched it off, and which for green software, whatever your opinion on the value of blockchains is, it's still a monumental moment in green software.
Yeah. This is what we want. It's what we want everybody to do with all of their software. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So the idea here was to create a plugin for calculating the software carbon intensity of one of the blockchain networks, I suppose.
Of the entire blockchain network, or just like?
Well, that's where the conversation went next, because calculating the software carbon intensity of an entire network creating a bottom-up estimate is extremely complicated, because every participant in the network runs their own hardware or runs their own cloud instance to run their node. Each one of those will be in a different region. Each one will be using slightly different versions of the software. So accounting for all those variations across the entire network of thousands, hundreds of thousands of nodes is going to be awkward. I think the way that people do it at the moment is to create kind of like a best guess average for a node and then multiply it up by an estimate of the number of nodes across the network and do it that way, and take sort of best guesses of the grid carbon intensity, best guesses of hardware choices, etc.
Is it based on number of transactions? Is it based on transactions? I mean, I would imagine it would be a transaction is what I would imagine is the computational observation for a blockchain.
Well, that's also we can go quite deep on this conversation. Oftentimes these values are reported per transaction, but what they've really done is take the carbon consumption of the network and divided it by how many transactions there are per day or something like that. But it's not quite logically consistent, because the number of transactions doesn't really change the energy consumption. So if you choose to make a transaction or not, it doesn't change how much energy is burned by the network. The nodes are still running the same software, they're still processing the same amount of information. And on a proof of work network anyway, the energy is being burned as a way to secure the network, a way to demonstrate that you've expended something of value in order to put a new valid block to the end of the chain. Right. So it doesn't matter what transaction you divide it by transactions. It's like saying a train. It's like saying a train burns more energy because it's got more people on it. I mean, it's kind of true because maybe it's heavier, but the train's still going from A to B using the same amount of energy regardless of how many seats are on. It's the same kind of idea. The energy is burned securing the network, not sending a transaction.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay, I kind of see where you're going from. Yeah.
So
So
there's kind of a disconnect between transactions and energy consumption in reality. It's more about can you sustain the network, and then transactions flow back and forwards.
in terms of value, I mean, I'm trying to think through. I mean, just if you definitely see this as a rabbit hole. In terms of um, getting to energy is probably the good thing to do, because once you can get to energy, then the rest other plugins in the ecosystem can then probably take energy and turn it into more useful values. And we haven't really got into water, but I just have this theory that energy is gonna it's gonna go from energy to water the same way as energy goes to carbon somehow. But so getting to energy is kind of useful. But I suppose the question is, what are you getting to energy in a way that is useful to you? I have some Bitcoin. I'm sorry to say, everybody, I have some Bitcoin. I made a bet. It's a lifelong bet. It's either gonna buy me my yacht when I'm like 90, or it's going to not. But so I've basically got a Bitcoin wallet. And like I've made a bunch of transactions on that Bitcoin wallet. If that was like, I was thinking like, what would be useful for me as a human being? Like, it might be kind of useful for me as a human being to be able to put my Bitcoin wallet. Maybe a Bitcoin wallet is like a component, and then all the transactions over time are like observations over time, and then some. That's what I was asking about transaction. Like somehow that gets translated into energy, and then I can see like, if we aggregate it, I could see the amount per wallet, and I could see how many. I don't know how much carbon my wallet has been responsible for. I suppose this relates to your point. Is it by transaction?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if you as an individual with a Bitcoin wallet are not personally burning loads of it, you haven't got ASICs and your GPUs working 10
but I'm
a dozen all the
responsible
time to
for
run
it.
that way.
But I'm
Well, that's
responsible.
the thing. Yeah. Somewhere there's a bunch of mining farms running thousands of ASICs the whole time, 24/7, to compete for the opportunity to put a new block that includes your transaction on the blockchain that everyone shares. So the question is, by downloading a wallet and sending a transaction, do you take responsibility for some small fraction of all that ASIC mining? Or is that the miner's problem because they get the rewards for doing it? They get paid out their Bitcoin by the network for mining blocks, and you're just a participant. So it's kind of like, yeah, you can break it down by transaction if you want the end user to take a part responsibility in that energy consumption, or you can think about it a different way.
God, there's a lot here, isn't there? Because there's that aspect of it. Then you also want to think through, because at the end of the day, you're going to create. People look at kind of impact framework as a way of calculating, but really the impact framework is a way of creating what did you call it? An executable audit, right? What does that mean for the block? And like, who cares? Like, if you create, maybe I want to give you my wallet, and I'll be like, well, here's the audit of how much emissions this wallet has executed. That'd be one case. But like, if you were like a miner, it wouldn't matter to you anything about the blockchain, because you're basically consuming you're just a data center like anything else. So you would compute, your manifest file would be something that represents all the compute.
I guess you'd need like the TDP or whatever of your specific ASICs that you're running to do the proof of work calculations. Multiply that out by the number of ASICs that you're running, however many thousands that is. You need the grid carbon intensity of the grid that you're pulling energy off, and all of those kind of things. There's lots of debates around this that really do go off down some pretty deep rabbit holes around miners moving around locations, try and capture stranded energy and flared energy, capturing methane flares and all this sort of stuff to try and. I don't know how much of it is legitimate, how much of it is kind of greenwashing, but there's definitely a lot of debate around it.
There was, this is it. I remember finding these guys ages ago. Yeah, I think this is it. At least, unless they've oh. No, they've pivoted. Yeah, they've clearly pivoted.
Okay.
I think it was Satoshi Energy or Satoshi Offset. So the word Satoshi is probably going to be
Something like that.
over. But it was effectively it was carbonware computing with Bitcoin, because I think that's an interesting that's kind of an interesting aspect of it, because energy costs are such a component of your profitability as a mining operator, that scaling down and scaling up could actually be quite importantly profitable. If you're in like because if you're in a renewable area and there are moments where you can get electricity for free, um, you would scale up at those moments. And in fact, there's a really interesting ways you can scale up, because you can scale up by then, as well as scaling up the compute and the amounts running, but also scaling up your HVAC system so that you're cooler, which means you're overclocking. Then you can overclock your machines. You can do these really intelligent things where you really overclock massively when the electricity is effectively renewable energy that was going to get thrown away. So there's opportunities there which are quite powerful from a, because a lot of it's, you can treat Bitcoin as compute that is very tolerant of latency, and so therefore has a lot of carbonware computing components. There's that aspect of it as well.
Yeah. So there's definitely again a wide open design space here for exploring stuff. A lot very complicated to get an accurate bottom up estimate. Also probably pretty contentious. A lot of people will like it, a lot of people will not.
Nothing wrong with contentiousness in the crypto space. Are you joking?
This actual issue, the conversation moved on to some other ideas around trying to account for smart contract interactions, which really getting into the granular details of how not Bitcoin anymore, but how Ethereum executes different transactions and manages contracts and that sort of stuff, and whether it's a good idea to try and create per contract interaction carbon estimates. I mean, it's extremely granular, very low level stuff. It's kind of interesting. The thing that I guess the thing I wonder about is post merge. Now this has moved to proof of stake and basically switched off its proof of work stuff. We're really splitting hairs at this level. It's low carbon already. I guess it's a good thing to have accounting and optimize further. But when you're comparing something like Bitcoin, that's the size of a country's worth of energy, to something that's a tiny fraction of that, it's a different thing now.
I do hear that argument. That the only feedback I think that the statement I'd have is that because that argument could then also just be presented back at us. It's like, why do you even bother with tech? Because concrete, so like I always flip that around, which is like I would say, like, if you're in, like, but I always say it this way: if you're an Ethereum developer who develops Ethereum that 24/7 and loves Ethereum and just could work on making Ethereum sustainable, like, that's okay. If you're a Bitcoin developer that spends all day talking about Bitcoin, I don't know if there's such a thing as a Bitcoin developer, isn't it developed? But like, if that's your world, then focus on Bitcoin. I always treat it's like people. Like, if it's you and if it's something you're interested in, because I'd love to like quit everything and just focus on building concrete that is, or like, things like that is like, it's kind of like in your ikigai. If your ikigai is like Ethereum, then spend time there.
Well, it sounds like this person is very motivated for this. Yeah. I think there's definitely, I would love to see this become a plugin, because this person is clearly passionate about it. They've put a lot of work into researching the background and come up with some good ideas. And the thing that I love about this is that although I really want this person to get a plugin in the hackathon, even if they don't, they're back and forth on the issue board is already been a valuable resource.
Hey, look, do you know what? I want to throw this out there as well. We have a prize for content and teaching and training. So this could be like a very easy, like, I don't know how it would flesh out, but like, how would you compute Ethereum contract using Impact Framework is actually pretty reasonable content.
Yeah.
Maybe don't plugin. Yeah.
that generalizes across everything on the board as well, right? It's
Yeah.
like I really do want to see this turn into something because a lot of effort's gone into it
Yeah.
by this person already.
Yeah.
But for all the discussions, so if you've
Yeah.
gone deep into something and you've learned a lot and you've uncovered some good research and found some good media out there or whatever,
Yeah.
but then you decide actually this isn't a viable plugin. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a viable article.
Yeah, great point. Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big yeah. I love these kind of like deep conversations because they're just so much, and we're at such the cutting edge. I mean, there's so few people actually talking about this stuff. So, I always, yes, it's writing is the most valuable thing I've ever done in my entire life. Full stop. I would say writing publicly is the most valuable thing I've ever done in my entire life. So whenever I coach people or mentor people that are younger, I always say just start writing. Doesn't matter what, just start writing, and you'll get there. Should we move on to the next one? Because I feel we might land.
Yeah. I still need to
did you-
respond on that thread again. I
with
will
this one,
later.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but nothing else to say about it right now.
Okay. I responded on this one already, but I thought I'd just Fergus, isn't it? Has he responded back to me? No. Okay. So this is Fergus, who's actually very, very active in the foundation. He runs kind of other projects. Like one, I think he's the Carbon CI project, which is actually interesting. Carbon CI was a project that he came up with like a year and a half ago. And Carbon CI was like, can you figure out the carbon cost of your CI, your continuous is it integration? Yeah, pipelines. And where they kind of got stuck and stopped was the fact that like, how do you turn information into energy and carbon? And that's kind of where Impact Framework started. It was like, well, that was one of the impetuses for like why we were talking about Impact Framework, because we were like, well, we've got this Carbon CI tool, and it actually just doesn't know like in its CI pipeline, it's got like some database, like how do you calculate the value of this database? So that's kind of one of the Impact Framework came along. So that's where he's coming from, is kind of CI pipelines, and he's just like it's kind of an open-ended one. He's kind of more asking like generally like what does it mean? At least that's the way I read it. It's kind of more generally like how does CI fit into this? Can we measure CI? He's mentioned a couple of different ones: actions, GitLab CI, all those other ones. He's looking for a team. So basically, the ones we're talking about right now are all looking for teams. So if you're listening in, drop, and this is something that you feel like doing, just head in and kind of add a comment in and say, this is interesting, I want to get involved. My feedback for Fergus really quickly was I was kind of asking like, what do you want to measure from a CI perspective? If you think about it, like one of the things that it would be useful to exist, because we've lost Joseph. Or is he back? Have I kicked you off? I think I might have kicked you off by accident. Did I kick you off? All right, sorry. Yeah. You're back now. So for instance, like, you're like when people are like measuring the carbon cost of their infrastructure, one of the things they want to measure is their CI/CD and their QA and test environments and things like that. If your CI, let's say your entire CI/CD environment is like GitHub and triggered through GitHub Actions, like you want to know the carbon cost of GitHub Actions and add that into your whole flow. That would actually be quite useful, because then you could imagine like one component in your manifest file being maybe GitHub Actions or a specific type of action. And then the observations would be like whenever that action ran, how long it ran for. Maybe I don't know if you can grab like utilization. This is some interesting areas. So if there could be a component, there's probably two plugins here. One of them which is like extracting data from GitHub Actions. I think that's the plugin I said actually. If you can get something which can extract data from GitHub Actions and represent it as observations, if you can get it to utilization or something, then there's enough plugins to take that and convert that into energy and other things. If you can just, maybe it's like a GitHub Actions importer, so you can import observations from some CI/CD tool. That would be quite cool. And we actually need that because one of our goals is to build a manifest file so we can measure our website, and our website is built using static website. It's built using build jobs on GitHub Actions, build jobs, and one of the things we've needed to do for a while is to figure out what the cost of that would be and how to get that data. So that'd be pretty cool. I don't know what. Yeah, that's what I thought of. I don't know if that's what Fergus, if you're on the call, I don't know if that's what you were thinking of, but it's what I was thinking of. So that might work. And if anybody else, I don't know, what's your thoughts, Joseph? Any thoughts?
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I basically just agree with what you just said. To be honest, a whole lot to add. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it would be great to be able to just have this triggered by an action. I think it's something we've spoken about a long time ago, and then never really picked up the thread. So it'd be really nice to see it come to something.
That is something we've spoken about a while ago as well. Actually, it's slightly different, which is like if you were to like trigger impact framework through an action as well. I mean, I think we're a little bit. I don't know. I suppose we're going to need some. I bought a new chair, by the way. I don't know if I've explained this chair to you. It looks a bit weird, doesn't it? It's a meditation chair. I'm currently squatting. So yeah, so you could probably like if there was some, if we had like, it's one of my dreams was the future was like if you've got an open source project, you'd have a manifest file in the root of your repo, and every time you make a change to your code base, it would trigger an execution of that manifest file to compute, some outputs. The only way that would make sense is if we had lots and lots of importers, because otherwise you're just computing the same static data every single time you do a check-in. So I don't know what that looks like, but I think we're a bit early for that right now. So that's a CI solution. But yeah, Fergus is really good. I'm sure whatever he does here, I'm sure he's going to do a really good job. But if you want to do work on like CI, he's looking for people. Effectively, this is a solution around impact framework measurement using with continuous integration or some aspects of that. So if that's something you're interested in, if you're in DevOps, I think this is a good project to kind of, it's recruiting. So I think it's a good project for you to jump on and just again comment to say if you're interested, and that'll be good there. How long have we got? We've got maybe. Oh, did you talk about Paz's one? Did you have time last time?
Well, we mentioned it. We didn't really go into any depth.
Okay. It might be useful to kind of bring Paz on to talk about that in particular, because that is there's a lot here. We could spend an entire session on this, but Paz worked with me at Intel when I was there until recently, and this would be a very. Let me see what he's written. I'm just assuming what he's written. Yeah, Intel Energy Estimator. Yeah. So let's bring because this is kind of interesting, because basically so the a chair. It's not all team Intel. That's brilliant. Yeah, so this is the product that we built in Intel called Intel Energy Estimator, and so like the way I don't know if I told you about it actually, even Joseph. Do you know like the T curve?
This is we built the shell model to facilitate running this. But I was at the time we've got this black box. It's some Python code, but you're not allowed to know what's in it. Just make it work.
Oh yeah, yeah, because it was like Intel. It wasn't like open at that point. The don't just maybe it's for people listening. Like we've got this like thing called the Teeds curve. We don't have it. Obviously, we didn't make the Teeds curve. It's under IF models, isn't it? Teeds curve.
Oh, actually.
Yeah, is it?
It's under unofficial models.
Oh, is it?
It's in the unofficial models.
Yeah. Benjamin Davies, if you're listening in, please unofficial models. You may want to take over, or somebody from Tees, you may want to take over this one. Oh, this is the one. So the Teeds curve is like it's become quite famous now, in that it's like the problem it's solving is you've got how the hell do you know how much energy your application is consuming on, you know, the hundreds of chips that exist out there in the world, what you need, and the input, the only input that you have, the only observation that you have is utilization. So you know that your application is 50% utilization. What energy is that? Like, how do you know what energy that is? Well, there's two bits of information that you need. For every single chip in the world, it has a value called TDP, thermal design power, I think is the TDP, thermal design power. And what Benjamin Davies and the team at Teeds did a while ago was they just went, do you know what? Oh, for God's sakes. Do you remember when Medium used to be free?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the good old days. What they did was, let me see if this is the right one. Yeah, this is the right one. Yeah, I think. So what they did was they said, you know what, it's too complicated. What we're going to do is we're going to just analyze every single bare metal machine that's available on AWS. And they ran like benchmarking scripts off of all of it. And then they came up with a curve. Oh, that's the embodied emissions. I'm trying to find it. Hang on. There it is. Then they came up with this. So let me zoom in on that. Which is, on average, across every single chip, whether it's Intel or AMD or Graviton, on all the machines they ran on, if you were on idle, if you were at 0% utilization, I think it's French, which is why it has the comma. It was 12% of the TDP was being consumed. If you're at 10%, 32%. So this is the aspect of the curve. Is that the curve is kind of, oh no, the curve is like this. It's convex. Okay, can't remember. But you, even when you're idle, you're at 12% consuming energy. At 10%, you're consuming 0.32, 32% of the TDP. At 50%, you're consuming 75% of the TDP. And 100%, you're consuming 102% of the TDP. So for a CPU which is 100 watt TDP, so certain CPUs, I don't know what mine is, certain they'll have, every single CPU has a TDP. So at idle, that would mean that's consuming 12 watts. At 10%, that would mean that's consuming 32 watts. 75 to 75 watts, and at 100%, it's 102 watts. That's the Teeds curve. And so now with two bits of information, with just one bit of information, just the TDP of a chip, you could then now estimate the energy consumption based off of the CPU utilization. That's basically what Teeds did. It's fully averaged. It sometimes underreports, sometimes overreports. Because every chip actually has a very customized curve. The truth is, every single chip is different. Different families are different. It actually also changes depending on what you're running. 100%. If you're running a chip at 100% and it's running an AI workload versus if it's running like an IO workload, like a networking workload, will actually consume different energy. So it also depends on what it is that you're running as well. So it's very variable. It depends on if you're using any of the accelerators because in the future chips will have lots and lots of accelerators. So although this is wonderful and it just opened the door to everything, it's also not quite that accurate. And so what we were doing at Intel, and this is what this is talking about, is can you build something which actually gives you, where you can provide the power curves for every single CPU specifically, where if you're going to get, like, if you're using AMD blah 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 blah, it then inside this plugin somewhere actually has the real curve for AMD blah 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 blah. And that's what this is about. I don't think this plugin actually will have the data, so because getting that data is stunningly complicated. But I think it's a plugin that would mean if you just could point it to a directory full of that data, it would kind of like give it to you. If we can get to this world, this is generally, like, if we're talking about green software sustainability, if we can get to the world where we actually have these power curves for every single chip on the planet, it changes dramatically what we can do, because then you can answer questions like, if I was to move to this chip, if I was to recompile my application to take advantage of this accelerator, how much more energy would I save? It would help answer those questions. So yeah, so that's what this is all about. Damn, we should write an article about that, Joseph. That was like a lot of, for me, that was like I walked into Intel thinking I know how CPUs work, and now I kind of like Paz and like Akshay kind of schooled me. At the time. Yeah, a lot of people schooled me. I don't really know anything. I don't think anybody knows anything about CPUs. Like I think they're actually magic. Anyway, so that's that one. Quite excited about that.
Yeah, that would be really good. We the Teeds model does a lot of work at the moment in IF. It'd be nice if we weren't quite so dependent on it.
Yeah, yeah. But it's so useful because it's so easy. This is what I explain to people is like I've often, I know we've only got a couple of minutes left, so I'll just wax lyrical. So like the like as engineers we get so there's questions as well. So I'll just say something really quickly. As engineers we get so caught up into the calculating the exact. The reality is that these simple rule of thumb solutions are what become popular. And I've drawn a diagram where I've shown how like very simple assumptions just get pulled into application, and then that gets pulled into an open source library, which then gets pulled into this. And before you know it, very complicated dashboards and reports are being built. And when you delve in, you're like, oh, you're making this unbelievably simplistic assumption, which means all of your data is basically pointless. So we really need to get to that point where we can get kind of like, yeah, that's where the transparency really matters. That's what transparency is, yeah.
Yeah, well, if we didn't have the Teeds model as a heuristic, then we would not have been able to get IF to the state that it's in today.
Exactly, yeah. But it also, yeah, there is value in that was the point I was trying to make. I went to a different point. The point I was trying to make, there is a significant value in being able to just have one solution that kind of works for everybody, and then you can like improve that over time. If you're trying to like write a solution which just works for like one type of chip, and you're ignoring everything else, no one's going to use it because it's just not going to have the variety. So you got some questions. I didn't notice them. Sorry. Let me ask this one. I can show it. I can click show. REST calls. Are there already plugins? Guarantee the answer is no. Which show carbon emissions for the REST calls made. So like API calls. That's interesting. Given a CI/CD pipeline, usually there are REST calls to Artifactory. I don't know what that is. I presume that's some sort of place where you store things. Yeah. I suppose to calculate the carbon of a REST call, you kind of need to know what that REST call does behind the scenes. So it's not going to be like a simple, every REST call is one, and you have to know what it does. But if you know the number of REST calls, and you could just give it a coefficient. That happens a lot. People give it the best guess coefficient. And as long as that coefficient is bedded into the manifest file, so you're like every REST call I'm going to treat as 1.2 grams of carbon, then you can then you can probably do it that way. Any thoughts, Joseph? Have we done anything with REST calls?
Yeah, I was just trying to parse out all this this information. It's quite a dense question, but I think what they're trying to get at is when you trigger some CI/CD process, it's running on some hardware that's making a lot of external API calls at the same time. And do we have a mapping for those API calls to some amount of carbon being expended? No, we don't.
No, we don't.
And we also don't have any plugins built yet to handle any of that. Yeah. At all. Really, it's completely blank slate. If you want to work on it, there's nothing done yet. It's completely open goal.
Well, just ideate over it for a second. Like, if you were to ask me, if you were building, like, if you wanted to like measure the carbon emissions of an API server, but then also report that on a per API basis, you would have to like measure, like either like grab for the last like 5, 10, 30 days worth of data regarding like all the infrastructure that API service use, the utilization, everything else. measure the emissions of that, and then use the SCI. I don't know if we then use the SCI and actually also track the number of API calls that have been made over that period of time. And then you effectively, the SCI plugin would divide one by the other, and it would then give you like a carbon per API call. And then you could then use that in subsequent, in other things where you want to measure does that make sense? Yeah. Oh, and we're over time, but let me just quickly ask some other questions. Are there any projects for students yet? By students or for students? I don't know if there's any projects by students yet. I don't think so. But there are students working on projects.
Yeah, we're not really. It's not really the way we're handling it. Is it? We're not putting out projects for students to pick up, or it's more like you come with a project and refine it, and when you're happy with it, then you make it a project proposal. It's not like we haven't got a list of projects to give out to students. It's like the other way around.
It's all right. I mean, if you do want to ideate, there's a bunch of projects under discussions. Ooh, that's you proposed that. So there's a bunch of projects down there. I don't know what. I'm not seeing a lot of projects right now, just because I heard the term students. I'm not really seeing a lot of projects right now which are translating academic work and making it more easily available. There's been some amazing work by Hugging Face recently on the carbon emissions of various kind of like LLMs, and it's just lots of data is in that paper. Could you extract that out and turn it into a plugin? I don't know. There's lots of stuff like that. And I think that's kind of an interesting. Not anybody can read a paper, so I suppose it's not really linked to students, but that might be something interesting. And there's another question here. Let's do that before we finish off. Is there a project looking at device energy and combining with e-waste? Ooh, no. Answer is no. To pretty much is there a plugin? The answer is probably no, because there's about 10 plugins right now.
And the closest thing is the SIM, right? So it's got embodied emissions for device production and disposal.
That is true. You have to provide so much of the data.
Yeah.
That's something I think I would love to see. I'll put an ideation on for that. I'd love to see, the same way we're doing with cloud metadata, where we just maintaining the information. I'd love for there to be something with embodied emissions as well. So like you just say, this is my device, and it kind of like has an internal database of, well, that's the embodied of that device. We'll pick that.
Yeah, the SIM model really makes the manifest files look quite ugly as well. Yeah, it's a bit annoying.
Yeah. But so there's nothing like that. And again, there is significant value if you think your plugin is just like, take this number and multiply it by this coefficient, and take this number and multiply it by this coefficient, and add those numbers together and give it back output. If your plugin is like 5 lines long, it does not mean it doesn't have value. It's not about length it's about the value is kind of like how useful it is to other people and in their pipelines. And if the fact that you're asking this question is making me think that you've got some data somewhere. So yeah, go for it. Go for it. Yeah, plugins like that would be extremely valuable. I have to run. So thank you all. Another great session. We'll have chat to you, Joseph. We'll be here next week. We should talk a bit more detail about the hackathon and ideation. And again, please, if you're ready and you want to join a project, go to any of the ones that are recruiting and just comment on them. Just say, hey, I'm interested. If you've got an idea for a project, you can hit new issue and kind of get started and just throw it out there. It doesn't have to be fully fleshed out. You can see we're jumping in and we're kind of like supporting and giving ideas for people to help nurture their project along. So even if you just like got experience in a broad area, just chat it in and we'll support you. But thanks all. Catch you all later. Bye. See you later, Joseph. Bye.
Bye.